Okay, so I see you're back. All right, Lamborghini Huracan. Okay, I guess this is the first, technically the first supercar featured on the channel. Okay, so let's talk about it. There's a lot of things I'm sure many of my subscribers want to know about me. Are these cars even worth the hype? Is it worth the cost of like a house, essentially, you know, an automobile? And I mean, I'll get into that, but first of all, let's talk about, okay, what is this vehicle? Okay, it's the Huracan. I think I drove one of the newer models because the vehicle that I drove, it was a black colored car and it had like the kind of newer front fascia to it. So something to keep in mind. All these vehicles were driven at Extreme Experience. I already did a video on that. You can watch that first if you want to. It's just short summary thoughts about the company and how everything worked out. So, you know, there you go. But yeah, Huracan's the first car I drove, and this is the only all-wheel drive car at the event, well, that I drove, because I also drove the Ferrari 488 GTB and the McLaren 570S. So you got the Huracan. So this is easily the safest car to drive because of the all-wheel drive. Now, obviously, traction control had to remain on for this event, of course, because you know you don't know the limits of most of these drivers. But this is most importantly also the only naturally aspirated vehicle that they had here, and because of that, the Huracan was by far the best sounding vehicle, by far. Like, no questions asked. This is the best sounding car. I really like that. All these cars had 7-speed dual clutches in them. Crispy shifts. No, I did not get on the paddle shifters, but I noticed that you notice the shifts more in the Huracan. So slightly more of a violent shift, but probably not as violent as how some describe the Aventador to be, because that's a single clutch vehicle. This is a double clutch, of course. So yeah, no, they're all crispy shifts. The drivetrains on all these cars are phenomenal. They react instantaneously. Now, because traction is on with these vehicles, I'm sure it's pulling some power because, you know, we're not racing drivers. I'm an amateur. I maybe push these cars like 50% of what it's capable of, you know, out on these tracks. Even though the track is already neutered, I'm sure I didn't even touch the limits of this car at all. But, you know, what can I do? I just have to experience the cars and kind of let you guys know my thoughts about them, right? But was it a mind-blowing experience, really, in any of these cars? To me, no, but I kind of said the same thing about the Shelby GT500. I'm in a different mindset, you know, when I'm on a track. Like, I'm not worried about... I'm just worried about not crashing the car and not upsetting the instructor next to me. That's the main thing. Obviously, when I drove the Shelby, there was no instructor next to me, but I was still worried about not crashing the car. That's my main concern. So, you know, that's the one probably thing holding me back when I was driving these cars, but, you know, it is what it is. There's one straight that we got to hit it on, and it's only 1,000 feet. So, you know, we hit maybe 80 to 90 miles an hour on those straights. And I mean, when you peg it, does it feel fast? I mean, of course, all these cars are fast. They pretty much instantaneously get across that straight, no problem. But do I feel like this rushing sensation or anything like that? Honestly, not really. I mean, the one time where I felt like the blood loss in my brain and my vision kind of blurring was when I launched the Tesla P100D Model S. That's the only time where I had that sensation. These vehicles, we never launched any of these cars. They did not let us do that. So, no, we didn't get that like rush of blood in our head or anything like that, or vision blurring or anything like that in any of these cars. But the Lambo was plenty quick. It had the most amount of grip. It was the easiest to drive. It had a good chassis. I do like it. It's a carbon aluminum kind of hybrid construction of the chassis. You got double wishbones in all four corners, forged aluminum components for the suspension, proper stuff. All these cars are, you know, at the pinnacle basically of what a sports car technically should be. It's a mid-engine vehicle, of course. Again, by far the safest. I didn't actually notice too much in terms of an understeering effect. I thought the car remained pretty neutral. I think the early model years of the Huracan, many reviewers complained about the understeer in the Huracan. So I think they fixed that later on. And I think that's the byproduct of what I drove here. Suspension, chassis, I mean, by far all these cars, they had the least amount of body roll in them. So the Huracan compared to the others, I mean, this is probably my second favorite car that I drove out of the bunch. It remains in the middle, and I think that's about right. And the Huracan and the Ferrari, they both had these ridiculous kind of track robusto brakes or whatever the hell it's called. Very screechy, very loud, and very kind of immediate. That top portion of the brakes, they really do grab. So, they kind of put that in here. So obviously it's a track events. So, you know, to repeatedly stand up to the braking and all that stuff to give you that consistency, they had to put these ridiculous brakes on there, and they worked, of course. But just stock from the factory, the Lambos come with ceramic brakes. That's the stock kind of brakes that they put on here. So something to keep in mind. Upkeep with these cars is stupid expensive, of course. Is the Lamborghini worth it? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've drove all three of these cars, man. I mean, I don't know. It's my second favorite in the group, but paying like $250,000, $300,000 for these cars, I'm afraid I can't see it. I really don't. I'm sorry, man. Especially when other cars that are out now provide you so much for not that much money, like well under $100,000. It's hard to justify these vehicles. It is one big douche flex machine. And the other thing is, nobody's going to take these cars out on the track. It does sound glorious, I'll give it that. It does 0 to 60 in about 3.2 seconds, according to Lamborghini themselves. Surprisingly, it's one of the lighter weight cars, actually. It's about 3,180 pounds, something like that. This and the McLaren, these are the two lightest cars. The Ferrari is the heaviest at 3,300 pounds, which I kind of found surprising, especially since this also utilizes all-wheel drive. So, I mean, if you need like an all-wheel drive supercar, I guess it's pretty cool. I think that alone might sway some people towards the Lambo, but obviously nobody's going to take this out on the track. You know, if you wanted a track weapon, you can easily get an aerial Atom for like less than $100,000 and probably run circles around these supercars on a track. So, you know, it's an interesting vehicle. I mean, it's cool. It's got the prestige going on. It's the smallest car at 176 inches. And because of that, out on the street, it actually doesn't have that much presence, I've noticed. Like, I've seen Huracans out on the street, and I always get them confused with Miatas. They're very small vehicles, actually. They look amazing in videos and in photos, but in real life, not so much. But again, I'm not some race car driver, but from what I felt, I mean, they're okay. They're fine cars. I mean, I liked it. I liked the event. The steering weight is pretty like neutral, like in the middle, basically. Let's kind of end off on the interior. I mean, I didn't really check it out too much. I didn't really play with the infotainment. It's a very quick event there. You're in and out of these vehicles very fast. And the interior was probably the coolest in the Lambo. It had the most like going on, like the whole cockpit, you know, jet fighter vibe thing. You know, it had that going on. So yeah, I'll probably give the interior to the Huracan. But again, second favorite car. It's definitely not a bad vehicle. Very neutral, very planted, very cool car. I just feel like things like the AMG GT, even a lot of the BMWs, man, they might ride like shit, but I promise you, man, handling wise, they are very impressive. And then you got the Porsche cars. Again, I did not drive the GT3, but dude, something like a GT3, that's pretty epic. Cheaper than these supercars. And you got the American cars. You got the Hellcats, you got the Camaro ZL1, and you got the new Shelby GT500, which is pretty damn epic. The Shelby can be had for $70,000, brand new with the warranty. And I love driving it on a track. It's the most approachable near 800 horsepower I've ever driven. I'm going to leave a link down to the Shelby video I did. But yeah, it's a supercar. It's mid-engine. It's got all the right things going on, right suspension, right components. It's impressive, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't mind-blowing, if that makes sense. But again, I'm no pro. You let me know your thoughts down below. But that's it for the Lambo. Let's go ahead and let's talk about the Ferrari next. So I'll see you in that video.